Okay, I said I can show you a creature that is absolutely gigantic. That was recorded in the ancient text and is on a map that I will show you. Now, where is it? It's right here. This, from where my cursor is here, all the way to over here, is a creature. And it was attacking this creature right here, which just happens to be a fish. And you can look at it carefully, take your time. Now, this, I don't know what this black spot is here. I think he might have been eating a squid or something. I don't know. But this is a fish. Now, let's take a look at the dragon. Let's start with his head. Right up here. I'm going to home in on it. All right, start looking. Start looking. All right. You know what? Hold on one second, Nick. I'm going to grab a couple of pictures where I have them highlighted. Okay, I'm back. Now, here's the deal. This is a dragon, and it is a very, very large dragon. And he was called Typhon. And he was supposedly the product of Gaia and Tartarus mating. I know it sounds insane, but it's exactly what it is written about in Appolodorus 1.6.3. If you want to read that, that's what it's all about. Now, here's his red flaring eye. This is his body. This is his dragon scaled throat. All the stuff below here is just what they call effluent. It's just a mix of watery fluids that runs out of a decaying body. And that's all it is. Now, let's look at him on Google Earth. There he is right there. There's the same dragon right there. All right, here's his throat. Follow the throat all the way down. I'm going to back out of here so you can get a good look at him. There's his red flared eye. All of this flashy stuff running down the side of him. That's the stuff they have on the dragons in China and all that. It runs all the way down. It's all the way down, all the way. This is just still his neck. Now, let's look at the scales. All right. This is what I'm saying is his neck. All of this stuff down below is just stuff that's run off. These are scales. You see him down here? That's the inside of his throat right here. This is where he's swallowed people and stuff. Right down here. This...
I feel like the cloaca, if you don't mind zooming in on the excretory.
Oh yeah, I'll let me take it right down the line here. But I want to make sure they understand these plates. These are his scales. And you see, they're made in little blocky plates. That's so he can articulate his neck and bend it. Otherwise, it will be one big thing he couldn't bend. So that's another thing to prove. Now, right here is where his throat was cut. And this is also in Appolodorus. His throat was cut by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. So just think of how big Zeus was. And this cut goes right straight across here, all the way across here, and he bled out into the desert. You see all the red blood and the black blood? That's the artery and vein blood. And this right here is the gash. And you see how green it is here in the middle of the desert? Why is it green like that in the middle of the desert?
This is a populated area, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Roger? Populated area?
Yeah, there's people here.
Okay, so do the people, I wonder, talk about the history of this area? You know how each region will have some history about it, you know. This is Dragon Cutthroat Mountain, so to speak, right?
They could have. I don't know. I'm trying to hook up with some people around the world, and I'm getting some people here and there that have been asking me about things that they've heard about their cultures, and does it make any sense, that type of thing. And every one of them makes sense, 100%.
Yeah, eventually the evidence just is so overwhelming that you still want the science, but you get to the point where things are fairly obvious.
Now, here, let's go back to Typhon. So we've seen his dragon scales. His throat runs all the way down, all the way down. This is his body. This whole thing here is his body.
Those legs.
There's his legs.
His legs. Come on. Look what is he standing on? I mean, he's standing on something here.
Well, no, these are coils. They turn into coils. And they run all the way down, all the way over here. These are coils. All right, watch here. This is not sand dunes. You know what leather looks like?
No, I've seen this and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's unmistakable.
It's leather.
The dimpling. If you look at cellulite, you have this similar dimpling effect. You can clearly see this biology.
Yeah. It's more. I would say more of a leatherish,
right.
type of thing. But his legs went all the way down. They said it come all the way up to the top of his head and all the way out here. And the only thing he was, as far as a hybrid goes, they said he was a human and a beast hybrid. But all he had for the hybrid was legs. He didn't have anything else.
Yeah. It looks like there's a fairly large structure just underneath the legs. This whole system here, that looks very much humanoid. If you want to take a look at that entire structure, that looks like a humanoid cranium. If you zoom out and you look, it's very large. Yep, there we go. So now, yeah, exactly. You have some sort of a head. If you scroll down, you can see this is an entire humanoid figure.
Well, I have to see the real details on it, but I see what you're saying.
To look at, but you start to realize that this is more than just.
Well, here's what I see. Here's what I see.
Yeah.
You see these things here? What's that all about?
Yeah.
What's that? This is what I want to know. You see this abrupt
like a Lichtenberg pattern effect.
This is an abrupt transition between some kind of a tissue layer and it's feeding in and absorbing something. Now, this to me is a pancreas or a liver or some kind of an organ.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but it's some kind of an organ that is dumping, and it may even be lymph nodes. These may be lymph.
Yeah, it definitely appears innervated.
Because I found a lymph. You want to see something cool? This is going to blow your mind. I was digging around on a fish. Don't forget now, Typhon attacked that fish, and this is what came out of his mouth and his beards. You see this stuff?
Venom.
It's some kind of really ugly, nasty toxin, and it came out and it attacked that fish and ate right through his scales, all the way down to his blood vessels. So I'm looking at the blood vessels the other day, and I'm thinking to myself, I should be able to find the lymph nodes.
Definitely.
And I did.
Yeah.
Now watch.
Of, where the lymph is processing.
It's trying to get rid of the toxins. Watch this. He's shooting all these toxins down. All right, you see him here. All that's coming down on the fish. It comes past his fin. Now we're hitting the meat. Now look at this. This is blood vessels, arteries, blood vessels, lymph nodes, everything. This is all the way down. Here's what you got. The big ones here with the little black dots in them, those are arteries. The smaller ones are blood vessels, and they run down to the capillaries, and the capillaries discharge into the black little strips, which are the vein take up. And part of that is lymph. There's going to be a whole series of lymph. And I believe it might be over in this area. But anyway, the lymph nodes are what cleans up the garbage in you. So if you were toxified by something just like this, came down and ate into your body, your lymph nodes would say, I'm going to eat up all that nasty stuff. You see this right here? This is into the good flesh. But these are the lymph nodes, just like skin cancer, breaking right through the top of the skin.
absorbing that.
It's absorbing these toxins that are coming out over the top, and it's trying to deal with them. It can't. They exploded, just like skin cancer. That's exactly what happens in skin cancer. And
this is the venous system.
This is the lymph. This is lymph.
Right.
Yeah, it's part of the vein and the lymph are similar, but they're totally separate. But the lymph drains all the nasty stuff out of the vein discharges. The lymph sucks all the real. It's like the plasma coming out. Now watch this. You see this lymph node up here? This is the lymph, this brown stuff.
Right.
And it's coming into this lymph node, and the lymph node is sucking it all in, trying to deal with it. And it is killing that lymph node. The lymph node can't deal with it. It's too much. And it's turning black and killing it. Normally, it would feed in all the way around the edges. That's normal. All that stuff coming in around these edges. Look at down here. Watch this. This is where it feeds in. There's that abrupt transition, see? And at that point, the lymph node starts to deal with it with its own bacteria that lives in here. And it cleans it up. But it can't do it. It's
overwhelmed. Overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like the liver will be easily overwhelmed and
terribly toxified.
Yeah.
You look at it coming down here in just scads. This here is where all this stuff is coming and eating into the guy's body.
Yeah, this looks like inhospitable, almost like there are no people that live in this particular region, just because it looks totally incompatible with life.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. But the funny thing is, there's people living in some of these beards from these dragons.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to bother them. I don't know. These are all lymph nodes, and they're exploding like bombs. Look at this. It's trying to take all that stuff in. It's just flooding it, and it's just destroying them.
You could create animations from these still images that show how these biological systems work.
Yeah, well,
it's crystal clear. That's crystal clear.
Yeah, it's hard not to be able to see it. Once you understand what a lymph node looks like and what they do in the body and the different blood vessels, the stuff I'm presenting, I did a lot of work to figure it out, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And the ancient texts talked exactly about this. And here's the cloaca you're talking about. Here's his legs here, one leg here, one leg there. Don't forget. And like over here,
legs like a man, right?
Yeah, right. He's got the thighs of a human, and that's the only thing they said was human, was the thighs. That's the only thing they said. And I'm going to tell you right now, they didn't even know that he had a dragon head. 3,500 years ago, they didn't know this, because all the pottery from then shows a human head on his dragon body. Hold on a second. You see? This is what they show.
Sure.
Here's the coils on the bottom. Remember I told you he has coils on he had thighs of a human, and then they turn into coils. But everything else they show as human on his head. It's not. It's a dragon head. So they were pretty accurate about the way they portrayed what they thought was real. So they would have showed him with a dragon head if they knew he had a dragon head, I think.
It's a game of telephone, I think the verbal stories get lost in translation, and now we have satellite imaging. So
now, you know what? I got to show you that map showing. But here is Typhon, which I just showed you, and I showed you his throat was cut, and I want to show you. Well, let's look at his throat again, because this is really cool. It comes down from his head down here to the cut throat, right there. All right. So, if they showed a map of this dragon, it should have a cut throat if they knew that. Now, what else would they know? they would know where Atlantis was from ancient days, which is right here. That is Atlantis. It's not, see all these little things? This was an eyeball too at one time, an eye of I don't know what. But you see all these little inlets? They use these for their boats to come in and out of the rings of the eye. And there's actually, looks like there might even still be some structures here. You see, this is one of the rings of the eye. You see this stuff here? I don't know what these things are, whether they're just bushes growing there or not. But these here, I think these might be structures where they pulled into the harbors. You see, these look like little channels coming in. And what these things are, I don't know. I looked at them as best I could. I can't make anything out. You see what I'm talking about?
It's definitely biology, and we just have to kind of understand what it was before this substitution effect.
Right. Well, we know it's. I agree with no question whatsoever in my mind. This was an eyeball, but just like everything else on Earth is all biology, they, I believe, used this as their ringed island, Atlantis, and they used these channels coming in as actual channels to be able to access it. And they had a straits over here. This right here, which is a straits.
Now, is this flooding activity, the mudslide, is this accepted by the scholarly community?
No, they don't accept any. No. They don't accept anything.
But you can see it happening in the image. You can see that there was a mud flood here, or a mudslide.
It came right out. Oh, no question. You can see they just refuse to. Okay, my friends, I'm going to show you something now, and then I'm going to show you what it represents in a desert in North Africa. This is North Africa. This is the Red Sea. This right here covers all of North Africa. And that, my friends, I believe is Typhon the dragon. And this right here is where his throat was cut. And below him is Atlantis, where the boats used to come in long ago, even long before this, into the Sahara Ocean, which is now the Sahara Desert. And this was commissioned by, I can't remember his name, Musa Masaf or something like that, back in 1375, and it outlined the entire known world at the time with where all of the seats of power were, who was reigning, and all of this business, because they all had control of certain geographical areas. Now, this, I claim, is the dragon in the desert. So let's go forward. Remember this. Come back to it and look at it if you want. This is the map, and again, I'll sort of scroll over it a little bit slowly, and you can see what it has here. And again, I believe this is the dragon in the desert. Okay, my outstanding friends, we're going to take a trip to Mars. NASA's been talking about Mars forever, and I started with the Curiosity mission 2014 when they landed the Curiosity rover up there, and it took some fabulous pictures, which seemed to have almost just disappeared. Now, I have Nick Hesiod with me here, just to keep an eye on things. He's getting involved in trying to make this research known and a knowledge base, basically, between universities and people that do research. The universities don't seem to be too interested in the things I've been doing, which is very disconcerting, but it is the way things are. Now, NASA's not interested either, none of them that I can find. So we're going to try to make this open. Nick's got some great ideas how we can make a presentation that's more professional than I've been doing. But I've been showing physical evidence. I'm a material person, and I just don't have time to do all that fancy stuff. What we need is to have somebody start to pay attention to it. That's all. So this is what it's all about. Now, these are the pictures coming out of Mars, and these are mostly from, well, there's Mars Curiosity, and then, which is the one I'm going to be talking about. But then there's also the new one, Perseverance. Now, we're going to jump to the pictures of Mars. And a lot of them are of Mars. Some of them are of meteorites and so forth. Some of them are here on Earth. And we're going to start with this Mars crab. All right, this is a very interesting picture. And as I've been saying all along, the ancient texts appear to be true, and it does appear to have been a living creature just like Earth is covered with creatures, or is a living creature. Same thing here. Now, this is the artery. That round spot, they called it the Mars crab. This was one of the first things that grabbed my eye. I knew exactly what it was when I saw it. I said, holy smokes, these are muscle sarcomeres. That's an artery. That's a vein. These are the blood vessels. These are the connective tissues. These are the sarcomere blocks. And this is all this red dust, which is the red planet, is blood cells. And these blood cells fed these sarcomeres, which are the little strippy little pieces here. And these only what's left here is the blocks and the connective tissue. All of the red stuff running out. You see all that red stuff there? All of that is basically blood. And these are the blood vessels coming out of the artery itself. And the vein does not have blood vessels. It just sucks it all the way back up and goes back to the heart to get recharged. So now you have seen the sarcomeres, these blocks. These little strips are the connective tissue. You've seen the red, which is the eroded flesh, basically, and blood cells. And mud and clay, that's all it is. That's on Earth, it's the same thing. Earth was just exactly like this, and I'm going to show you. On Earth, it has identical, no difference whatsoever, only it is not eroded like it is on Mars. That's how, oh, they're really not on Mars, they're not on Mars. Yes, they are on Mars, trust me, and I will show this in a number of ways. This, on Earth, it does not erode like this. The connective tissues in here don't just show up and all of the blood cells come out, all this. And like on the whole planet, it's like this. So don't tell me this is on Earth. This is on Mars, and it is the erosion that tips it off. All of that dust coming out of here is because it's extremely dry, arid environment, and it's on the whole planet. Now, as you can see with this one here, look at this. That's about as arid as it gets. Now, this, again, is all muscle connective tissues. The red is coming out, which is all the blood that was in between all these little strips of connective tissue. The black down here is the vein blood, which is used and was going to get slurped back up to get recharged, turn red again, come back down with some more oxygen. And look at the size of these sarcomeres. When I show you what they look like in a human body, it's going to freak you out. And I'm just telling you, I know this is a shocker. This is a shocker du jour for even the most unshockable mind, but it is what it is. And if you can't deal with reality, then I don't know what to say about that. These are the sarcomeres. These dark lines right down the center, these are the blocks. Block, 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 block. They're all over. And I mean, they just go, and I showed you on Mars, they're all over. And these are the connective tissue stripes going back and forth here. And do you see the red and the white? They slurp together. See down here? They come together. That's a contracted muscle. This is just a relaxed muscle. When they contract, they just fuse together. But all you're going to get after the red stuff erodes out is all of these tiny little lines. You see all those little bitty lines in there? All of those are connective tissues that are tough. They don't erode like the fleshy stuff. Now, look at this. This is up on Mars, too. What do you think about that, Nick?
Wow, So yeah, I can definitely see biology going on here. This is pretty obvious.
100% sarcomeres. These are sarcomeres, and look at the size of them. They're they're this big on Earth too. If you know about Petra. Did you ever see the things I showed about Petra?
Absolutely. Petra is clearly muscle tissue, and you can just go in there and I would love to visit. Boy,
we're gonna visit in a minute. We'll go up there and check it out in a second.
Okay, sure. Do a virtual tour.
Virtual online assessment of the biology of Petra. Now,
yeah, there's just with all that blood. I'm so surprised people don't pick up rocks more often and say, well, yeah, that's clearly, not every rock just randomly bumped into some iron.
It's a hard nut to crack, my friend. Now, look at this. This is up on Mars too. You ever do any drywall?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can see that here.
It looks like putty on a drywall. It looks like a grooved putty. This is nothing more than muscle tissue as well, and it hasn't completely eroded like the other. There's banded muscle, and then there's skeletal muscle, and there's different types of muscle. This one here is a little bit different than the other type of muscle, but it's a muscle, and the same thing like here on Earth. You see that? That's here on Earth. That's a mountain. All right. This is the back of a van here, way down the bottom. See it?
I do. Yeah.
And here, this is the mountain. You see the red? That's the red running off, which is the blood, the vein, artery blood, and it ran out over here too, but not like Mars. Not like Mars. Mars is so dry, it just falls out. But that's muscle. That's not erosion and so forth. And when you see that, and I'm going to show you one I have in my shop. Remember these layers and how they're fused in together and so forth. Remember this spot right here. That's an abrupt transition. This part over here is the tendinous area. Most people won't understand this, but you will, because you're a wellness guy.
And the insertions, the insertions where it's a little bit harder, where it's anchored there.
Right. The bone or whatever would have been over here, but what we're seeing is tendon over here, which is a very tough, just barely stretches, very tough. And then right here is an abrupt transition. And over here is the red bloody muscle. All right, remember that. No real lot of blood over here. A lot of blood over here. Tendon.
Are we looking at a shoulder, or do you know what we're looking at?
No, I have no idea. All I know is every tendon will go to a muscle. Between the tendon and the muscle, there is generally, but not always, a pretty abrupt transition. Mm-hmm. Which means the connective tissue, which is very, very highly tough and not a lot of nutrition in it. You don't need it. It's just a tough strap. These are tough things, man. They are tough.
It's not as innervated as the tissues that surround it.
Exactly. There's very, very little need for any blood to flow, and consequently there is very little. But a muscle, totally the opposite. So we have very little color here, and we have a ton of color here.
Yeah.
Now, here's my shop. Here's the one in the shop. Hold on, if I can find a Z1. Here it is right here. Now, this right here is, you see the round spot up at the end here? That could be a bone. I'm sure it's a bone. And then coming from that bone right there is like, this stuff is like glue. And I'm not kidding you. When I look at it in a microscope, it's just like some really nasty, gnarly glue. And it grabs to the tendon, which is this little tiny slurp here, right there. That's the tendon. See how it's brown? You see how it's red here? That's the abrupt transition, which I just showed you on that side of that mountain. Here's the brownish stuff. And then he went into the reddish stuff, and there's the abrupt transition. This at the top is nothing different than the Mars crab. You see
Okay.
this? You see the
So
red?
We're looking at it. We're looking at a different octave of that, a different size.
Yeah, it is a little smaller.
Okay. Yeah, a little. Yeah, just a hair.
The one on Mars, I don't know how big it is, but it is absolutely stunningly
It
large.
looks like a mountain range style size.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and we have them here on Earth too. They're absolutely enormous. Just because of that, they are overlooked and just dismissed and demeaned that somebody would have the audacity to make that claim.
Well,
Trust me.
nature. You know, it's nature.
It's human nature to reject something like that. That just and I don't mean it in an offensive way. I just mean it. I want to see reality and the truth. And when you see this here, millions of years in one picture.
I know, but this is the system's presentation here. Yeah.
This is nothing more than that abrupt transition right here. And you see that round spot, the white spot here on the end, right here? And this big white band? That is where the tendon invested right there. And I'll show it to you on my rock. It's identical. There's no difference whatsoever. All of these layers are layers of connective tissue that are part of this abrupt transition piece of tendon. This is a piece of tendon. It's not millions of years. It's a few hours as the guy died.
Yeah.
All right, now, can I show that in my picture? Absolutely, I can. And here it is right here. You see it? There's the thing right there. There's that white.
Okay, sure.
There it is. And it is eroded here and the abrupt transition here. Because this stuff is floppy. That just falls away. So that's why that thing's sticking up all by itself in the middle of the ocean. That thing was pretty good size.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm going to show you some other stuff, but it's, well, here's the sarcomeres. Here's a better shot of the sarcomeres. Whoops, I got, what happens here, this is the muscle tissue. Well, I'm sorry, this is your skin and your adipose tissue, the fatty sort of stuff that slides over your muscles. This white thing right here is the fluid-filled highway that keeps your muscles and all your organs.
That's your battery. Roger, that'd be like your battery, is that layer of interstitum.
Interstitial.
Interstition is say, that's where your energy, your flow, right? Like imagine a river is delivering this energy to the cell. This is where that's coming from. It's sort of like, think about it as your battery.
Well, actually not entirely. Your blood is the one that brings all of that nutrients, and it's a totally separate system. Your lymph is totally separate, and this is basically lymph fluids. But living in that lymph fluid is the enzymes that make all the products that make your body work.
Sure, they work together to do that.
Yeah, they're the ones.
Structure.
Right. But the blood basically is what brings everything around to the cells and to the tissues and so forth. I've shown you the thing in Africa there. Well, let's forget about that. That's another whole issue. Now, here's what those sarcomeres are. That's exactly what we got up on Mars. There's no difference. They are what they are. And again, this was long ago. This was in 2014, and I tried to talk to everybody I could find. So I said, look, you got sarcomeres? This is a giant creature. You got an artery, you got a vein, you got bloods, you got that. And boy, they come down on me, man. Now, here's the Mars blueberries. They have no idea what they are. These are the interstitium balls. These are the balls that hold your body, the flesh together on your body with little tiny straps. The straps are gone. But let me show you where on Mars they're much bigger and the straps are still there. And again, these are Mars blueberries. Look them up. And here is the Mars crab. Bada bing. Check that out. Now, what are we looking at? We are looking at skin that has eroded because it's been sandblasted. And so this originally had just a thin layer of skin over the top, and this is the stuff that makes your skin come back and forth. This is the gooey stuff. This is what they call the layer of flexible, gooey interstitium right below your skin. And where it's all gathered together here is your skin is pinched together. You see that one here and this one over here. Up here at the top, this is like a normal pattern. Your skin can go this way, it can go that way, it can go left, it can go right, it can go, and it'll stretch. The little stretchy jobbers will stretch. You see underneath, you can actually see the basement layer of the skin. This is freaking crazy, man.
Sand. You see it looks like sand.
Well, yeah, because it's been sandblasted. See it? Now down here, these are bumps where the balls have been eroded and the straps. You see the straps being real stretched here? That's because the skin was stretched. And because it was stretched like that, it eroded the bumps, the straps off the bumps and left the balls. Those are the same as the blueberries, only this is much bigger. Now, I'm not sure how big this is, but it's good size. And that's skin. Now, that is not going to happen on Earth. No way possible. Impossible. Cannot happen in 100 billion trillion zillion years, because there is moisture on Earth, and you will never, ever, ever, ever end up with this type of a texture. Impossible. This is Mars, no question whatsoever, and this is interstitium, no question whatsoever. These are the balls that are the same as the Mars blueberries, and the straps and all that stuff is gone. I mean, it's not hard to see this stuff. You just have to open your eyes big enough and your mind big enough to take it in and then think about it. You know, I'm not saying, oh yeah, Roger's right, no. I'm not saying that. Oh, here it is right here. This is from 2014. This is look, NASA Curiosity may have found fossils on Mars. Yes, they did. And then that was the last word I ever heard about it. The last word. As soon as I started talking, beep, we're talking sounds of silence. It's too much. It's too much for the average mind. It really is.
Until you go outside, Roger, and you start looking at enough rocks, it becomes absorbed into you. And when you look at all these images, you can clearly see the biology.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, even like this. I don't know if you can see this or not, Nick, but this.
I can see it. Yeah, you got the toe.
Yeah, these are the no toes. We got these coming out of our ears. And all my stuff, well, not all of it, but a lot of it, so I have 3 DNA tests, I have 7 CAT scans, I have all the specimens, I have the chemistry, and Nick is helping me with nucleophilic substitution. What do you got there, Nick?
It looks like a heart.
Whoops. It's hard to see. I can't. My eyes aren't that good, but it could very well be. It does. You're going to see like two layers in a heart. And I
think it would be smart to use AI to kind of help you look at the structures, to have a more of an unbiased approach to determining if these structures fit with biology. And I think you'll find that it clearly does.
Yeah, well, I use the books, and I just hold them up against the books. You can't hardly miss it. I mean, the only way you can do is just be a denialist. Here, hold on a second. Let me just tune up for that. But let me just show you a couple last things. Again, I know this is a shocker. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And the ancient text said that there was a terrible catastrophe on Earth. And there had been giants on Earth, and they all drowned in this great flood. And then this comet, which actually turned out to be Venus, actually ended up hitting Mars. And here's where it hit right there. You see this up here? Right there is where it impacted, scraped all the way across Mars.
Wow, that's something else.
You know how far that scrape mark is? It's wider than the United States.
Yeah, 1,500, 2,000 miles, you know.
Oh, even more than that. I forget.
Thousands of miles.
It's just absolutely stunningly big. Now, and it's deep. And it's recent. And there's no other possible explanation for it. Now, we also were impacted by Venus, but it didn't quite hit us. It caused the waters to literally boil, they said. And these were the ancient texts. Velikovsky, as Nick's been studying, he's been watching what I've been doing, and he's been studying on his own for a long time. And he understands Velikovsky and Velikovsky's account of the almost impact of Earth by Venus. As it approached Earth, it was blazing, and today it's 850 degrees or more. Back then, as it was approaching Earth, it was like hot like the sun, and it was just focusing in on Earth for 7 days, apparently, is what I understand. It was.
And Roger, I hope you don't mind I interrupt. I think it's important to note that this interaction between planets could definitely have killed off any of the life forms that would help break down and decompose what has been turned into stone of biology.
Well, that's exactly what did happen. When Venus almost impacted Earth, the first thing it did, the only reason a nucleophilic substitution works is because of the hot water. You know, I added that to the papers we've been doing about the hot water flood. All right, here's the deal. Venus, this is the ancient text speaking, and Velikovsky recording every single culture on Earth. And he went to literally everyone. They had the same story. A fiery comet attacked Earth, basically. For 7 days, it approached Earth and was with basically the impact like a sun coming at us, the sun. It was that brilliant. And it heated everything on the Earth so hot that they said people were jumping in the waters to try to stop, and the water started boiling in the rivers and so forth. And then it may have even boiled the oceans, but it certainly heated up like hell. And then it impacted the atmosphere. When it impacted the atmosphere, it literally basically almost combusted. But what it really ended up doing was the compression caused condensation. Compression is condensation, condenses it. And when the condensation happened, the water, the hydrogen and oxygen way up in the upper atmosphere condensed into water, but it was boiling. It came down as boiling rain. And everything on Earth, literally, that was out in the open was boiled to death and killed.
And not for the first time. I'm sure there were rock structures and things that had been existing at that time. So this is an event that must be reoccurring.
You're right, absolutely. And Velikovsky said that. He says apparently it happened 3 times in recorded history. Now, prior to that, who knows? But in recorded history, there was, I think it was 600 years prior to this, and then there was another one after this. And because Venus kept going around. What happened, it came out of Jupiter. So now it didn't just pop out and go into an orbit like, let me just jump over here. It's got to elliptically find its way into a nice smooth orbit, which it's in now. But that takes a time to find its place. So in the meantime, it's coming in and out of everybody else's orbit. And it smashed into Mars. And it also...
A wandering planet. Right?
It was wandering for a while until it settled into its position now. But in the meantime, it whacked the hell out of Mars, and I guess it did something to Saturn. I can't remember now, but I know that the Saturn was involved as well. Now, were these living creatures? They were certainly biological. I don't care how you look at it. That is biology, my friend. And it is biology on steroids. And when I say that, if you look at Typhon right here on the Earth, This is over 1,100 miles long. You say, oh, can you show me Typhon? Absolutely, I can show you Typhon. I can show you exactly Typhon. I can show you something else about the water system in this Earth by using Typhon. How would you like to do that? Nick says, yeah, we want to do that. Right, Nick?
Let's go, Roger.
All right, buddy. Typhon coming up. Take 2.